The bathroom mirror reflected back a version of Emma Hayes she barely recognized. Not because she looked different. The soft brown waves falling past her shoulders were the same. Her hazel eyes still carried their usual warmth, but because of what she saw behind them. Hope. Nervous, fragile hope that felt almost foreign after months of disappointments. "You've got this," she whispered to her reflection, smoothing down the emerald green dress she'd chosen after trying on half her closet. Not too formal, not too casual. The kind of outfit that said she'd made an effort without trying too hard. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her best friend Rachel. "Tonight's the night. He's going to love you. Call me after." Emma smiled despite the butterflies doing acrobatics in her stomach. Rachel had been the one to set this up, swearing that her cousin's colleague was perfect for Emma. David something. A marketing executive with a great sense of humor and a love for hiking according to the brief bio Rachel had provided. They'd exchanged a few messages over the past week. Nothing deep, just enough to establish that he seemed normal, employed, and capable of forming complete sentences. The bar was embarrassingly low these days. She grabbed her coat and purse, taking one last look around her apartment. The place was too quiet, too neat. Everything in its place, including her apparently. 32 years old, successful marketing director at a mid-sized firm, nice apartment in a decent neighborhood, and spending Friday nights meal prepping for the week ahead. When had her life become so predictable? So empty. That's what tonight was supposed to change. The drive to Marcello's took 20 minutes through downtown traffic. The restaurant had been David's choice, an upscale Italian place known for its ambiance and handmade pasta. Emma had looked it up, of course. The reviews praised everything from the food to the romantic lighting, the kind of place that screamed, proper first date. Rain had started falling during her drive, light at first but steadily increasing. By the time she pulled into the parking garage, fat droplets were pelting her windshield in a steady rhythm. She sat for a moment watching the water cascade down the glass, trying to calm her racing heart. "It's just dinner," she told herself. "Just two people getting to know each other. Worst case scenario, you get a good meal out of it." But she wanted more than that. She was tired of worst case scenarios and good meals. She wanted the kind of connection her parents had, the kind Rachel had found with her husband Tom, the kind where someone looked at you and really saw you. The umbrella she'd remembered to bring did little against the wind-driven rain as she hurried from the garage to the restaurant entrance. By the time she pushed through the heavy wooden doors, her hair was damp and probably frizzing, and she could feel drops of water sliding down her neck. Marcello's interior was exactly what she'd expected. Warm lighting from Edison bulbs hanging at various heights, exposed brick walls decorated with vintage Italian posters, and the gentle murmur of conversation mixed with soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. The scent of garlic and fresh bread made her stomach growl despite her nerves. "Good evening," the hostess greeted her with a professional smile. "Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under David Thornton, for 7:30. I'm meeting someone." The hostess scanned her tablet, then looked up with recognition. "Ah, yes, Mr. Thornton arrived a few minutes ago, right this way." Emma's heart jumped. He was already here. That was good, right? Punctual. Eager, maybe. She followed the hostess through the maze of tables, trying to spot her date among the Friday night crowd. And then she saw him. David was exactly as his photo had suggested. Tall, clean-cut, wearing a button-down shirt that probably cost more than her entire outfit. Dark hair styled with just enough product to look effortless. Handsome in that generic, professional way that populated every dating app in America. He was looking at his phone. "David?" Emma said as she approached the table. He glanced up, and for just a fraction of a second, something crossed his face. Disappointment? Assessment? It was gone so quickly she might have imagined it, replaced by a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Emma, hi." He stood briefly, a half-hearted gesture toward politeness, before sitting back down. He didn't pull out her chair, didn't help with her coat. "Sorry, I'm a bit damp," Emma said, settling into her seat and hanging her coat on the chair back. The rain picked up on the walk from the garage. "Yeah, it's really coming down." His eyes drifted back to his phone screen. The waiter appeared, saving them from the immediate awkwardness. "Good evening. Can I start you off with something to drink?" "I'll have a glass of the Chianti," Emma said, needing something to calm her nerves. "Just water for me," David said without looking up. "Just water. On a dinner date, at an Italian restaurant known for its wine selection." The waiter nodded and disappeared, leaving them alone with the weight of impending conversation. "So, Emma started, determined to make this work despite her growing unease. Rachel tells me you work in marketing too? Corporate communications, actually, David corrected, finally putting his phone face down on the table. Similar field, different focus. That's great. What company? Henderson Industries, been there 3 years. The conversation felt like pulling teeth. Emma asked questions. David gave short answers, his attention constantly drifting to his phone, to other tables, to the door. She tried different topics: travel, hobbies, the restaurant. Each attempt met with the same disinterested responses. The waiter returned with her wine and his water. Emma took a perhaps too large sip, grateful for something to do with her hands. "Have you had a chance to look at the menu?" the waiter asked. Before Emma could respond, David's phone buzzed. He immediately flipped it over, reading whatever message had come through. His expression shifted. Was that relief? "Actually," David said, addressing the waiter but not looking at Emma, "I'm going to need a minute. Could you come back?" "Of course, sir." As the waiter left, David finally met Emma's eyes. "Listen, I'm really sorry about this, but I just got a message from my roommate. Apparently there's a leak in our apartment. Water everywhere. I need to deal with this." The excuse was so transparent, so obviously fake, that Emma actually felt her face flush with heat. A leak, right, at 7:45 on a Friday night, that he needed to handle personally, immediately. "Oh," was all she could manage. "Yeah, it's a whole thing." He was already pulling out his wallet, tossing two $20 bills on the table without even looking at them. "This should cover the drinks. Again, really sorry. Maybe we can reschedule?" But he was already standing, already grabbing his jacket from the chair. He didn't wait for her response, didn't offer another excuse or explanation. Just a quick, guilty glance before he turned and headed for the exit. Emma sat frozen, watching him weave through the tables and disappear through the front door. The whole thing had taken maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes from sitting down to walking out. The two 20s sat on the table like an insult. She became acutely aware of the other diners around her. Were they watching? Had they seen what just happened? The couple at the next table was definitely stealing glances. The older woman by the window had that sympathetic look people get when they witness something embarrassing. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass, taking a long drink that did nothing to wash away the humiliation burning in her throat. This wasn't just disappointment. This was rejection in its most public, most obvious form. He'd taken one look at her, really looked at her, and decided she wasn't worth even finishing a drink with. What was wrong with her? She had a good job, good friends, took care of herself. She wasn't expecting perfection or a fairy tale, just someone who could sit through a meal without inventing an emergency to escape. The waiter returned, his professional mask firmly in place, even though he'd clearly witnessed the entire disaster. "Miss, can I get you anything else?" "No, Emma started to say she was leaving, but pride caught in her throat. If she left now, within minutes of her date abandoning her, everyone would know. Everyone would see her slink out alone, confirmation of whatever flaw had driven David away. "Actually, yes, I'll have the margarita flatbread, please. And another glass of wine." The waiter nodded, understanding passing between them without words. "Of course. I'll put that in right away." Emma sat back in her chair, trying to appear casual, like she'd planned to dine alone all along. Like this was fine. Everything was fine. Except nothing was fine. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall in public. Her chest felt tight with a mixture of anger and hurt she couldn't untangle. And underneath it all was the crushing weight of loneliness that had driven her to accept this blind date in the first place. She pulled out her phone, needing a distraction. 3 texts from Rachel. "How's it going? Is he as great as I said? Tell me everything." Emma couldn't bear to respond. What would she even say? Movement in her peripheral vision caught her attention. Someone was cleaning near the bar area, a member of the restaurant staff in dark jeans and a gray shirt with Marcello's embroidered on the pocket. He was wiping down the high-top tables along the wall, working methodically but not intrusively. As he moved closer to her section, Emma got a better look at him. Late 20s or early 30s, she guessed. Dark hair that looked like it had been pushed back from his face several times throughout the shift. Broad shoulders that filled out the work shirt in a way that suggested regular physical labor. But it was his face that caught her attention. Not classically handsome like David's calculated appeal, but warm, real, the kind of face that looked like it smiled often. And he'd been there, working in this section. He'd seen everything. The realization made her want to crawl under the table. It was one thing to be humiliated in front of strangers she'd never see again. It was another to have someone witness the whole pathetic scene up close. She deliberately looked away, focusing on her phone screen without really seeing it. Maybe if she didn't make eye contact, she could pretend he hadn't noticed. But then he was there, at her table, and she had no choice but to look up. "Hi," he said, his voice quiet, respectful. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to bring you some extra napkins." He set a small stack on the table, not meeting her eyes directly. Sometimes the flatbread gets a little messy. It was such a simple gesture, such a small kindness, but something about it cracked the wall Emma had been building around her emotions. He wasn't offering pity or sympathy, just napkins, just acknowledgement of her existence in a moment when she felt invisible. "Thank you," she managed, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. He nodded and started to move away, but then hesitated. When he turned back, his expression was careful, kind. "For what it's worth, that guy's an idiot." Emma blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, not professional." He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely apologetic. I saw what happened, and I wanted you to know that whatever reason he had for leaving, it wasn't about you. People who walk out like that, they're running from their own issues, not yours." "You don't know that," Emma said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not, but I've worked here for 2 years, and I've seen a lot of first dates. The good ones, the bad ones, everything in between. And trust me, the ones that fall apart in 5 minutes, that's always about the person leaving, not the person left behind." Emma felt tears threatening again, but this time they weren't entirely from sadness. This stranger, this janitor cleaning tables, had just offered her more genuine human kindness than anyone had in months. "I'm Marcus, by the way," he said, offering a small smile, "and I should probably get back to work before my manager thinks I'm bothering the customers." "You're not bothering me," Emma found herself saying. "And I'm Emma. It's nice to meet you, Emma, even under less than ideal circumstances." His smile widened slightly. "Enjoy your flatbread. It really is good even if you're eating it alone. Sometimes that's better than the alternative." He moved away then, returning to his cleaning duties, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts and the lingering warmth of unexpected kindness. Her phone buzzed again. Rachel, still waiting for updates, but Emma didn't reach for it. Instead, she found herself watching Marcus work, the way he moved through the space with quiet confidence, pausing to chat briefly with the waitstaff, his presence somehow making the restaurant feel less lonely. Her food arrived, and Emma ate slowly, no longer in a hurry to leave. The humiliation was still there, the sting of rejection still sharp, but something had shifted. Some small crack in the wall of her disappointment had let in a sliver of light. When Marcus passed by her table again 20 minutes later, she caught his eye and smiled. A real smile this time, not the practiced one she'd put on for David. He smiled back, and for the first time all evening, Emma thought maybe the night wasn't a complete disaster after all. Emma had finished her flatbread 15 minutes ago, but she found herself ordering coffee instead of asking for the check. The restaurant had grown busier as the evening progressed, the Friday night crowd filling nearly every table with couples, groups of friends, and families celebrating the end of the work week. The background noise should have made her feel more alone, but somehow it provided a comfortable cover, a cocoon where she could sit and think without feeling too exposed. She watched Marcus move through his routine, clearing tables, restocking the bar station, occasionally disappearing into the back before emerging with supplies. There was something meditative about the way he worked. Never rushed, but always efficient. He clearly took pride in what he did, even if most people probably didn't notice. When he passed near her table again, wiping down a recently vacated spot 2 tables over, Emma made a decision that surprised her. "Marcus?" He looked up, a questioning expression on his face. "Yeah? Can I ask you something?" She paused, suddenly feeling foolish. "And feel free to say no if this is weird or inappropriate or if you're too busy." He set down his cleaning cloth and gave her his full attention. "What's up? Do you get a break anytime soon?" The words came out in a rush. I don't really want to go home yet, and you seem like someone who actually knows how to talk to people, unlike some people who shall remain nameless but who invented apartment emergencies to escape dinner." A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. "You know what? My shift ends in about 20 minutes, and I was planning to grab something to eat anyway since I worked through dinner. If you want company, I'm happy to provide it." "Really? You don't have somewhere else to be?" "Just my apartment, where my roommate is probably playing video games and eating leftover pizza. Trust me, I'm in no rush." He glanced toward the kitchen. Let me check with my manager and finish up my closing tasks. Meet you at the front in 20? Emma nodded, feeling a flutter of something in her chest. Not the nervous anticipation she'd felt before her date with David, but something lighter, more genuine. I'll be there. She watched him head toward the back, then pulled out her phone. Rachel's texts had multiplied. Emma? Hello? If he murdered you, blink twice. Emma typed quickly. Not murdered. Date was a disaster. We'll explain later, but something interesting happened. Talk tomorrow? Rachel's response came immediately. Interesting? What kind of interesting? Are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Promise I'll call you tomorrow. She paid her bill with David's $40. At least the jerk could fund the rest of her evening, and made her way to the front entrance. Through the windows, she could see the rain had intensified, sheets of water illuminating in the streetlights like silver curtains. Marcus appeared a few minutes later, no longer in his work shirt but wearing a faded blue Henley that had clearly seen better days, but somehow looked right on him. He'd thrown a worn leather jacket over it and was carrying a backpack slung over one shoulder. Ready? He asked. Ready for what, exactly? There's a diner about 3 blocks from here. Best late-night food in the city, and it's actually on my way home. We'll get soaked getting there, but I promise it's worth it. Emma looked down at her dress and heels. Not exactly rain-walking attire. Marcus must have noticed her hesitation because he added, or we could grab an Uber if you prefer. I just figured after the night you've had you might appreciate some fresh air, even if it's wet fresh air. There was something about the way he said it, not pushing, just offering, that made up Emma's mind. Let's walk. I could use the fresh air. They stepped out into the rain together, and within seconds Emma was completely drenched. But instead of feeling miserable, she found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time all evening. Marcus was grinning too, water streaming down his face as they hurried down the sidewalk. This is crazy, Emma shouted over the sound of the rain. This is Friday night, Marcus called back. The diner, when they finally reached it, was exactly the kind of place Emma would never have chosen on her own. The neon sign read, Rosie's 24/7, in flickering pink letters. Through the windows, she could see worn vinyl booths, a long counter with red stools, and walls covered in vintage photographs and license plates from every state. A bell chimed as they entered, and the warmth hit Emma immediately. The smell of coffee and frying bacon wrapped around her like a blanket. A few other customers were scattered throughout. A couple of police officers at the counter, an elderly man reading a newspaper in a corner booth, a group of college students who looked like they were pulling an all-nighter. Marcus! A woman in her 60s with steel gray hair pulled back in a bun and wearing a pink uniform that matched the sign outside, lit up at the sight of them. Baby, you're soaked. Get over here and dry off. Hi, Rosie. Marcus accepted the towel she thrust at him, running it through his hair. This is Emma. Emma, this is Rosie. She basically runs my life. Only because someone needs to, Rosie said. But her eyes were warm as she turned to Emma, offering another towel. Any friend of Marcus's is welcome here. You two sit wherever you like. I'll bring coffee. They slid into a booth by the window, and Emma used the towel to squeeze water from her hair, knowing she must look like a disaster but somehow not caring. Marcus looked equally disheveled across from her, and there was something equalizing about it. No pretense, no trying to impress anyone. So this is your regular spot? Emma asked, looking around. Has been since I moved to the city 4 years ago. My apartment is just up the street and Rosie's never closes. When I first got here, working 2 jobs and trying to figure everything out, this place became kind of like home. Rosie makes sure I actually eat real food occasionally. 2 jobs? 3, actually. I work at Marcello's 4 nights a week, do construction work 3 days a week, and pick up freelance graphic design projects whenever I can. Emma's eyebrows rose. That's a lot. Do you ever sleep? Marcus laughed. Sometimes, when the schedule allows, but it's temporary. I'm saving up and building a portfolio. The goal is to eventually do design full-time, maybe start my own business. The other jobs pay the bills and keep me from starving while I get there. Rosie appeared with 2 steaming mugs of coffee and menus, though Marcus waved his away. I know what I want, the usual. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, and enough coffee to keep you wired until Sunday, Rosie recited. What about you, honey? Emma scanned the menu, overwhelmed by the choices. Everything from breakfast to burgers to something called Rosie's Heartbreak Hash. What's good? She asked Marcus. Everything. Seriously. But if you want my recommendation, the French toast. It's life-changing. French toast it is. After Rosie left, Emma wrapped her hands around the warm mug, letting the heat seep into her fingers. Outside, the rain continued to fall, creating a sense of isolation from the rest of the world. Inside this little bubble of warmth and light, it felt like nothing else mattered. "So," Marcus said, his tone gentle but curious, "do you want to talk about what happened earlier? Or would you rather pretend it never happened and talk about literally anything else?" Emma considered the question. With Rachel, or her other friends, she would probably have made jokes, deflected with humor, pretended it didn't matter. But something about Marcus made her want to be honest. "It's not even about him specifically," she found herself saying. "David, the guy who left. I don't actually care about him. We'd never even met before tonight. It's more about what it represents, you know?" Marcus nodded, listening without interrupting. "I'm 32, Emma continued, surprised by how easily the words came. "I have a job I'm good at, an apartment I like, friends, hobbies. My life is objectively fine, but somewhere along the way, it became so predictable, so safe, and every time I try to change that, every time I put myself out there, it ends like tonight, with someone looking at me and deciding I'm not worth their time. That's not what happened tonight," Marcus said quietly. "Isn't it?" He took one look at me and invented an excuse to leave. He took one look at himself and realized he couldn't measure up. Those are different things. Emma wanted to believe that, but years of disappointments made it hard. "How do you know?" "Because I saw you walk in. I saw the way you held yourself together when you realized he was already on his phone. The way you tried to make conversation even when it was clear he wasn't interested. The grace you showed when he left. And I thought, that guy has no idea what he's walking away from." The sincerity in his voice made Emma's throat tight. "You don't know me. I could be terrible. Could be, but I doubt it." Marcus smiled. "Besides, terrible people don't usually tip as well as you did. Our waiter Danny already texted me asking if you have a sister." That made Emma laugh, breaking the emotional tension. "Tell Danny I have a brother, but he's married. Devastating. He'll be heartbroken." Their food arrived, and for a few minutes they ate in comfortable silence. The French toast was, as promised, incredible. Thick slices of challah bread with cinnamon and vanilla, topped with fresh berries and real maple syrup. "Okay, you were right," Emma admitted. "This is life-changing. Rosie's secret is she actually cares about food. Novel concept in the restaurant business. Says the guy who works at Marcello's, where everything probably costs 4 times what this does. Different markets. Marcello's is about the experience, the ambiance. Places like Rosie's are about substance. Both have their place." He paused, then added, "Though I'll take substance over style any day. Is that your life philosophy?" "Pretty much. Probably why I'm 30 years old and still cleaning tables instead of sitting at them in a suit." There was no bitterness in his voice, just acceptance. Emma found that remarkable. "Do you ever regret it? The choices you've made?" Marcus considered the question while finishing a bite of pancakes. "Sometimes. When I'm exhausted and my back hurts and I'm watching people my age who took the corporate route buying houses and going on vacations. But then I remember that I'm working towards something I actually care about. I'm building something mine. That matters to me more than comfort." "What kind of design work do you do?" His whole face changed when she asked, lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to show her examples of his work. Logos for small businesses, website designs, branding packages. The work was good, really good. Clean lines, clever concepts. The kind of design that looked simple but Emma knew took real skill to execute. "Marcus, these are amazing. Why are you still cleaning restaurants?" He laughed, tucking his phone away. "Because amazing doesn't pay the rent. Yet. I'm building up my client base, but it takes time. Most of my clients so far have been friends or friends of friends. People who can't afford big agency rates. I charge what they can afford, which means I need the other jobs to survive. But I'm getting there. Slowly. That's really admirable. Most people talk about following their dreams. You're actually doing it. Most people are smarter than me," he said, but he was smiling. "They take the safe route, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But I watched my dad work a job he hated for 30 years because it was secure. He retired at 65 and died 6 months later, never having done any of the things he always said he'd do someday. I promised myself I wouldn't live like that." The conversation shifted then, becoming easier, more natural. Emma talked about her own work, the frustrations of corporate politics and the satisfaction of a successful campaign. She told him about her family, Her mother, who called every Sunday with increasingly unsubtle hints about grandchildren. Her younger brother, who'd gotten married last year and was already expecting his first child. So there's pressure, Marcus observed. Constant. Not mean-spirited, but it's there. The assumption that because I'm 32 and single, something must be wrong. Like I haven't tried. Like I'm too picky or not trying hard enough or... She stopped herself. Sorry, I don't usually dump all this on strangers. We're not strangers anymore. We've shared French toast. That's at least second date territory. Emma felt her cheeks warm. Is that what this is? A date? Marcus met her eyes directly. Do you want it to be? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility. Emma thought about David, who hadn't been able to stay through one drink, about the endless disappointing dates before him, about her careful, predictable life and how it had led her here, to a vinyl booth in a late-night diner with a man who worked 3 jobs and actually listened when she talked. Yeah, she said softly. I think I do. Marcus's smile was slow and genuine. Good, because this is already the best date I've been on in months, even if it did start with you being stood up. Especially because it started with me being stood up. If David had stayed, I never would have talked to you. True. Should we send him a thank you card? Emma laughed. Let's not. His ego doesn't need any more encouragement. They stayed at Rosie's for another hour, long after their plates were cleared and their coffee cups refilled twice. The conversation never lagged, never felt forced. Marcus told her about growing up in a small town in Ohio, about the moment he decided to move to the city with nothing but a beat-up car and a portfolio of student design work. Emma shared stories about her college years, about the path that led her to marketing and whether it was actually what she wanted or just what seemed practical. What would you do? Marcus asked. If practicality wasn't a factor? No one had ever asked her that before. Emma had to think about it. I used to write stories, poetry, just for myself. I was good at it, or at least I thought I was. But there's no practical path from English major to successful writer, so I went into marketing instead. It uses some of the same skills and it pays the bills. Do you still write? No. I tell myself I don't have time, but that's not really true. I think I'm afraid to try and find out I'm not as good as I thought I was. Marcus nodded slowly. I get that. It's safer not to try than to try and fail. But you know what's sadder? Never knowing what you could have created. The words hit Emma harder than she expected. When had she become someone who played it safe, who chose comfort over risk every single time? What about you, she asked, deflecting slightly. Are you ever afraid your design business won't work out? Terrified. Constantly. But I'm more afraid of looking back at 40 or 50 and wondering what if. So I keep pushing forward even when it's hard. Even when I'm cleaning up someone else's mess at midnight and wondering if I'm an idiot for not just getting a normal job with benefits and vacation days. You're not an idiot. Thanks. You're not either, for the record. Even if you let fear stop you from writing. It should have felt like criticism, but it didn't. It felt like someone seeing her clearly and caring enough to be honest. Rosie appeared at their table, coffee pot in hand. You two planning to close the place down? Because I'm happy to have you, but I should warn you, the breakfast rush starts in about 4 hours. Emma glanced at her phone and was shocked to see it was almost 11:30. They'd been sitting there for over 2 hours and it had felt like minutes. We should probably go, Marcus said, but he didn't move to get up. Neither did Emma. Finally, reluctantly, they gathered their things. Marcus insisted on paying despite Emma's protests, arguing that since it was technically a date now, he should cover it. Emma compromised by leaving a generous tip for Rosie, who hugged them both goodbye and told them to come back soon. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets washed clean and glistening under the streetlights. The air smelled fresh, carrying that particular after-rain scent that always felt like new beginnings. They walked slowly, neither wanting the night to end. At the corner where they'd have to go different directions, Emma toward the parking garage, Marcus toward his apartment, they stopped. I should get your number, Marcus said. If that's okay, I'd like to see you again. On purpose this time. Not just because your date abandoned you. Emma pulled out her phone and they exchanged numbers, but neither moved to leave. Thank you, Emma said finally. For tonight. For turning what should have been my worst Friday in recent memory into actually kind of wonderful. Thank you for giving me a chance. For seeing past the guy cleaning tables. Marcus, I never saw just the guy cleaning tables. I saw you. Something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability, hope, and something deeper Emma couldn't quite name. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm, slightly rough from manual labor, and his thumb traced gentle circles on her skin. "Can I kiss you?" he asked quietly. Emma's heart hammered in her chest. This moment, this question, felt more significant than any perfectly planned date ever could. Standing on a rain-washed street corner at midnight with a man who'd shown her more genuine kindness in 3 hours than she'd experienced in months of trying. "Yes," she whispered. Marcus stepped closer, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, a question asked and answered. Then Emma leaned in, and it deepened, becoming something that sent warmth flooding through her entire body. He tasted like coffee and maple syrup and possibility. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "I should definitely let you go home now," he said, "before I do something ridiculous like ask you to stay out all night talking to me. Would that be so ridiculous? Probably not. But I want to do this right. Take you on a proper date. One where I pick you up and we plan it in advance and I'm not wearing clothes that smell like restaurant cleaning supplies." Emma laughed. "I happen to like the eau de restaurant look." "That's good, because you'll probably have to get used to it for a while." They kissed once more quickly before forcing themselves to separate. Emma walked backward for a few steps, not wanting to lose sight of him yet. "Text me when you get home," Marcus called. "Only if you do the same." She finally turned around, walking toward the garage with a smile she couldn't suppress. Her phone buzzed. Marcus had already sent a text. "Already miss you. Is that too much for a first date?" Emma typed back. "Not when it's the best first date ever." She drove home through the quiet city streets, replaying every moment of the evening. The humiliation of David's departure felt like it had happened weeks ago, not hours. It had become nothing more than the unfortunate prologue to something that felt infinitely more important. In her apartment, Emma kicked off her ruined heels and looked at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was smudged. Her hair was a mess. Her dress would probably never recover from the rain. But her eyes were bright, her smile genuine, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt like herself. The version of herself she'd forgotten existed. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus. Home safe. Thanks again for tonight. Sweet dreams, Emma." Emma. "Sweet dreams, Marcus. See you soon." Marcus. "Definitely. How's tomorrow night?" Emma laughed out loud in her empty apartment. "Eager much?" Marcus. "When something feels right, why wait? But I can be patient if you need time." Emma thought about being patient, about playing games, about all the dating rules she'd followed that had led nowhere. Then she thought about Marcus asking if he could kiss her, about his honesty and directness, about how refreshing it was to be with someone who said what he meant. Emma. Tomorrow sounds perfect. She fell asleep that night with her phone on the pillow beside her, a smile on her face, and the certain knowledge that sometimes the worst nights led to the best beginnings. And sometimes the person you were supposed to meet wasn't the one you planned for at all.